This is one of the many viral videos. This one out of New York from a child. A little fist there. From a child to one mom's perspective. I asked Mary Cates to sum up in a letter her take on last week. She and husband Arthur have 3 adopted children. They're now 19, 20, and 26 years old.
My thoughts went back to my childhood, growing up in the 60s. I still vividly recall an older white man standing in front of his porch yelling at us, "Hey, you, get out of our neighborhood." N-word, get out of our neighborhood.
You never forget something like that, do you?
You never forget it. I can imagine I was probably about 5 or 6.
So now we're at a point where you're a mom with kids.
So when all of this erupted, I thought about, oh my God, where is he? What's he doing? Is he protesting? Is he looting? Is he rioting? I just could imagine this stirred up some anger in him. And reaching out to him and talking to him, I found that he chose not to protest, but to go to work, come home, and just digest this within the confines of his home and just reflect.
What if he had chosen to protest?
The pain from being followed in the street, stomped in the street unjustly, that pain is still there and it's deeply rooted. So because of that, for him, I would say, don't do it. Stay home.
You have news of charges and arrests. All 4 officers now charged. You were waiting for that moment, yes?
Yes, with bated breath.
Will you read the next line for me? It says to the protester,
keep walking, keep talking peacefully. Your voices are being heard and your voices matter. You get it.
You said the youth get it.
It's not about the color of your skin. It's not about your orientation. It's about, there's a problem.
You almost seemed a little stunned or in disbelief to see the diversity.
In 2020, we have other cultures coming in and listening and then joining us to help us get our voices out there and help us make a difference. That was surprising. I think my mom, if she were here with us, would be totally shocked. I was surprised. She would be totally shocked.
Mary Cates ended her letter calling on people to vote and to get people into places where they can make change. She ended that letter, though, I was kind of surprised by this, by hashtag Each Life Matters, saying thousands have risked their lives to move things forward for the Black community and will carry that forward for others. Thank you, Mary Cates, one of our Wednesday's Child Moms. A beloved police officer in Chino has made news for his love of community. This is Corporal Ryan Tillman in November when he announced he was leaving Don Lugo High School as the school officer to return to patrol. Fox 11 has done a few stories on him, so we wanted to check in as protests shake the nation with a hard look at policing. Corporal Ryan Tillman is with the Chino PD. The African-American officer had founded an organization to, quote, repair the bond between law enforcement and the community. It's called Breaking Barriers United. What's it like to be a police officer in this era?
A little bit about me is I never had any aspirations of being a police officer. And then after praying about it and, seeking God in the matter, he kind of just opened the door for me about 6.5, almost 7 years ago. It's very trying, that's for sure, to know that I work in a profession where it's very, very deeply hated right now. Made me feel like a certain type of way, but at the same time, like that whole George Floyd situation, it was completely wrong. It was unjustified.
When you see F the police, how do you feel?
To know that, this is one of our darkest moments in history. It was definitely an emotional roller coaster when I arrived out there. So when I see that, it's hurtful because it's like you hate me because of a profession that I signed up really to make change and bring change.
Where'd you grow up?
Grew up in Rialto, California, so I'm a local guy. Grew up in Rialto and San Bernardino, I like to say, just because a lot of my time was spent in San Bernardino with my grandmother as well. So
your organization, Breaking Barriers United, tries to do what?
It's put in place solely to bridge the gap between law enforcement and communities. And the reason I never wanted to be a police officer is because I had some bad interactions with law enforcement. Once I became an officer, I saw a lot different glimpse of the profession. I started to understand why officers do what they do.
When you see signs that say defund the police, what do you think of that?
If you want the best officers out there, if you want us to perform at the most optimal level, defunding the police in many ways is not what we need. We need, because we need to make sure we have the most optimal trained officers out there. But one of the things that I've seen is that policing is not the same, wherever you go throughout the United States of America. And maybe that's something we're a place where we need to fix. A lot of the de-escalation techniques we're teaching, the mental illness we're teaching, but you can go certain places across the country and there's literally zero to no training. Just to standardize training. What would I like to see for policing? I would like to see more empathy with police officers. I would like to see more awareness of diversity. I think historically speaking, it's been difficult for law enforcement or people within law enforcement to acknowledge that they are wrong. And I think that's why a lot of people are hurt right now. We have to be able to figure out ways to get along, the people and law enforcement, and realize that we're all still people at the end of the day. When I go home and take off my badge and my gun, I'm still a black man in America.
Tillman played college football. He's married with 3 children. You can find him on social media at Breaking Barriers United. We'll be right back. All right, in tonight's Race Matters segment, the George Floyd protest through the eyes of a still photographer. His name is Oscar de Aguila. He walks us through the protests and riots and talks about what he caught on camera. Where did you go first?
First, it was Santa Monica, the second day, the main riots. It was pretty bad.
What did you make of that photo?
I just saw her screaming at the police officers in the front line, just screaming at them. The officers they were talking back nicely. But the guy you see right there, I believe that was the guy in charge of the that group. So he was making everything peaceful.
When the curfew set in, what did you capture?
That's where everything started. Santa Monica Boulevard. Curfew hit 4:00, and they gave them time, like 20 more minutes. They gave them more time, and they were just there. But the other people started throwing rocks and water bottles and stuff like that. That's when the tear gas came in and the rubber bullets. Bad nights. There was no protest there. There was just people destroying businesses. And then the next day we went to Hollywood Boulevard, and that was the peaceful ever. And there was more people. And they just walk all over from Hollywood Boulevard, Sunset, Santa Monica, and came back. So it was really peaceful. I saw the National Guard there, and that's where you see the pictures of the front line, the officers holding the batons and everything. So yeah, that was a peaceful one.
The diversity of the faces you saw out there protesting, what do you make of that?
Wow. Every race, Hispanics, white, Chinese, everybody it was positive. It was amazing to see that.
Did you grow up in Los Angeles?
I grew up in East LA, Boyle Heights. I graduated from Roosevelt High School. When I was young, I witnessed a lot of stuff too, because I grew up in the projects.
What made you go out there with your camera?
Capturing history. I gotta be there. This is not happening only here, it's happening around the world. It's happening in Mexico and everywhere.
You can find Oscar's work on Instagram at Imagery by Oscar. And Elf, I gotta tell you, he's had a lot of interesting work, from the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce to companies to even working for the LAPD.
Oh, interesting.
Yep.
So we've seen a lot of different perspectives. I mean, you see those pictures, you could see those all hanging in a gallery this week. I mean, that's some incredible work.
I really love the tight face pictures, the officers, the protesters. It just really, you feel the emotion of them being out there.
And it's a good reminder that that we're all human, and at the center of this are human beings. They're not just concepts, they're real people being impacted.
And thank you, Oscar.
Honor George and make the necessary changes that make law enforcement the solution and not the problem.
The brother of George Floyd, Philonis, testifying before Congress earlier this week. Also there testifying a woman who lost her brother, an officer killed in the riots in the Bay Area. Perhaps you saw his picture. David Patrick Underwood. He was a federal security officer guarding the federal building in Oakland. I welcome Angela Underwood Jacobs from Lancaster. Thank you so much for being with us, and I'm so sorry for your family's loss. How you doing?
You know, I'm doing okay. I'm taking 1 hour at a time, but thank you for inviting me today. I'm really happy to be here so that I can share my brother's story.
Well, we're happy to honor your brother as well. So you testified Wednesday before Congress. You wanted Congress to know what?
You know, my message was one of unity and peace. I want us to have equal application of the law and justice for all people. And the other portion to this, which is a bit unique about this situation, is that my brother was a federal officer, but he was an African-American federal officer. And I want to make sure that people recognize him for what he did and for putting his life on the line for us each and every day and truly serving to protect all of us.
And there's that picture of him. We also saw the brother of George Floyd testifying. What was it like to be there in Congress with him too?
You know, I think that sitting next to him, I could feel his pain. And when he mentioned that he did not have the opportunity to say goodbye to his brother, I can completely identify with that.
Yeah.
And to not be able to say, how do you say goodbye, you know? But it was very painful and heartbreaking as well. And I think that was for both of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How is it for you to be a black woman and also part of a law enforcement family during these times?
You know, my son he also has a same job as my brother did. And for me, I'm a little bit, I am shaken, that is for sure. And each time that my son leaves for work, I am worried about him returning.
Yeah.
I had that feeling before, but before all this happened, but then now it's just that heightened sense of anxiety, if you will. Because I just want to, and I want to make sure that before he walks out the door, every single time that I tell him that I love him.
Yeah. So
it's been really rough.
Of course, of course. You were on the Lancaster City Council. You ran as a Republican for Congress. What is your thought when you hear the call to defund police?
You know, I think that defunding the police department, I think is wrong. I don't agree with it. I think that if we defund, I think that we'll be in a very similar situation that Seattle, Washington is in right now. And the very idea of that is that we need people that are there to patrol and take care of our safety. But if we don't, more than likely in the areas that need protection, that have issues more so than others, who will be there for them? So I am against defunding. I don't think that it is a smart solution. I think that we can come up with something better than that. And we want to make sure, too, that we honor our men and women in blue, because without them, we cannot be lawless. That we cannot have. So we want to make sure that we serve them and take care of them as well.
Can we take a moment to honor your brother, to remember your brother? Tell me something you just loved about your brother.
Oh, my gosh. I'm sorry.
Okay.
My brother was brave, and my brother was he was a big guy, healthy guy. He took care of himself, and he was just, you know, a person that when he walked into a room, you know, he commanded the room, and it wasn't because he was a humble person as well, which made it even better in my opinion. But he was a caring person. And I don't know, so many things about him, but he was a great guy.
Yeah.
And I think the world just kind of missed out on someone terrific.
We feel your pain. No, we are here with you. We feel your pain. We feel your loss. We thank you for joining us live from Lancaster. Your brother, David Patrick Underwood, forever in our hearts. And thank you so much, Angela, for your time.
Thank you so very much, Christine. Take care.
Okay, you too. In tonight's Race Matters, you've heard the term systemic racism. There are classes on it at Cal State LA. Dr. Will Wong teaches one of them.
We identify features in society, and particularly in U.S. legal structures that promote disadvantages to people of color.
And in 2020, that's still prominent.
Contemporary news has illuminated perhaps maybe evidence of implicit biases that we all hold.
I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
There are certain aspects of how we behave, how we've been socialized that sometimes promote disadvantages to other people.
Because some might say, I'm not racist and I don't view myself as biased.
Have we been a party to perhaps maybe preserving it in terms of how we practice, how we interact with each other? This is where people start having difficulty talking about it, because no one of us want to be responsible of being a party to it. And it's not just whites, but it's also people of color.
When you see the protest and the protesters, what do you see when it comes to all these young people out there?
It is a necessary component to affect change in U.S. society. We saw these kinds of things in regards to development of our own country as an independent nation.
What did you see when you saw looting?
My initial survival instinct was fear, safety, those kinds of things. Looking at this was really more of, I think, an outcry of, we need to have this conversation. We need to be heard. When we look at COVID-19 in terms of the majority of the people that are being exposed are people that don't have race privilege, people that don't have employment privilege, that have to show up to work. And those are the people that are getting exposed at exponential rates.
What do we want? Justice! What do we want it?
So how do we move forward?
Have we kind of gained advantages by, through the backs of others? Those are the critical conversations that I think that we need to have with ourselves.
What would you like to see here in Los Angeles?
I want to see more inclusion.
Dr. Wong reminds us that racism, of course, can come in many forms and to many cultures. His class is called From Institutional Racism to Cultural Competency.
Okay, so which college?
All right, so he's Cal State LA,
right,
and he's in the School of Social Work, training future social workers to think broadly about racism.
Makes complete sense.
Yeah.
All right, Christine, thank you.
Time to have a little fun here in tonight's Race Matters segment. A dance video that dropped during Black History Month in February is getting new traction with the Black Lives Matter protests. Meet the two LA artists behind the Black Excellence Dance video.
Yeah, hey. Okay, black on black, my thoughts so black.
The storyline was be proud to be black.
Hey, black out the coop, hop out the roof when I run into you.
We shot the video, choreographed the video, directed the video, everything.
Edited the video, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
How LA of you.
All of our videos start from this itty bitty idea to a big old production. So we casted like over 39 people in the video.
You open up as the lead dancers.
Mm-hmm.
Characters?
No, we were just ourselves.
Well, we were ourselves, but we were portraying like you were Malcolm X and I was Angela Davis.
We obviously had like Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King, Michelle and Barack Obama. Mm-hmm. Colin Kaepernick.
Just for the memory of the deceased. Me and man marching on all black roots. Call up the troops. Call up the...
We're in a time where the world has witnessed the death of George Floyd. We're starting to protest the calls for change. Where do you think your video plays in all of that?
Well, honestly, I think that's why it did what it did, because it was like, this is who we are. We are everything that you don't show that we are, and we are proud.
Also connecting with the protest is because the little clip that went viral the most is us in all black. It reminded people of the Black Panther movement, so it kind of made people be like, this is how we need to go out and protest. And then at the end, we did a big freestyle session, and that's just to show how lit we are.
Black on black on black on black on black, black on black, my thoughts so black.
That video is to a clean portion of the rap song Black by Compton rapper Buddy. Antoine and Kendra, as you might imagine, they do have other viral videos.
I mean, it is extraordinary to think of all of the different cultural moments that are happening because essentially of the George Floyd death and sort of all the waves in all of society because of what happened.
But remember, they did this for Black History Month. It's now been, though, reposted by Snoop Dogg, who reposted it from MC Lyte and Jada Pinkett. So it's really gone viral.
Wow. Well done.
All right, in our Race Matters segment, we've been hearing from voices of all walks. Tonight, an LAPD sergeant, Keith Mott, has been on Fox 11 before. In this story, strong thoughts on Black Lives Matter, the organization, and calls to defund the police.
The problem I have with Black Lives Matter protest is, the point of view I look at it from is, are we taking care of our community? What I see in the Black community, it's like Black people don't care about their own community. Here's a great example. We're going to take Chicago. Chicago's been in the news. Here you have 20 shootings over the weekend. A child, 3 children died innocently. Where is the outrage? Where is the protest? Where is the, to gang members or just people out just randomly shooting folks, what they call it as fun?
Black Lives Matter would say there's a pattern, they say, of police abuse.
There's always a talk that there's systematic racism among law enforcement. And I'll tell people, unless you have actual proof, unless you've gone on an individual's Facebook and he's posting up racial stuff, how do you know that every encounter that a white officer has with a Black person is a racist encounter? Or can it be, maybe I just did not follow my training to suit?
That was good. You ready to roll, man? Yeah, let's go hang out. All right, let's do it.
Fox 11 first met Sergeant Mott in 2017 through the Big Brothers, Big Sisters, Bigs in Blue program. He's been LAPD for almost 13 years, was a federal officer working the Supreme Court before that. His father, his uncle, and his cousin are all law enforcement.
So we kind of, Black police officers, we see both sides of it. But the thing that we see is the reason we join, become police officers is, for one, to protect and serve, to make a difference in our community.
How is it to be a Black officer on the LAPD right now?
It's rough because there are a lot of things that, with the defunding of the police, and nobody's really giving a real description of what defunding, it affects our job, it affects what we do as a police officer. But in the same sense, I have a lot of friends, I have a lot of fraternity brothers who are for this movement. So, how do you have a balanced conversation?
Well, you saw it, DJ, his Bigs in Blue mentee. Mott is also mentoring a boy from Compton who wants to be an officer still. And an upcoming story, you'll also hear from a young woman he's mentored too for their thoughts on these times. So we're all seeing this story through our own lens. I thought I'd turn to a photographer to hear about what he sees. This is Michael Young Jr., who goes by the name Michael Danger. He's a 35-year-old photographer and bartender who took his camera to protests in West Hollywood and downtown LA. As you're out there taking pictures and then you come home and look at them and select them, what's that like for you?
Looking through the pictures is actually kind of emotional.
We need a revolution.
This is like our graduating to a different part of humanity in the United States. It's just seeing everybody moving together and moving for the same cause, for the people that have the same skin color as me. I just feel so much emotion and so much love.
Did you see any confrontations with police at the protest you were at?
I think the closest confrontation was just a younger African-American gentleman. He was in front of the police. I posted one of those pictures on Instagram, and he just seemed like he was so hurt by what's happening. He was just right in their face, and you could feel the tension so much from just the crowd and the police.
Where are you from?
I'm born and raised in Los Angeles. I grew up in South Central LA.
So do you have a memory of the '92 civil unrest and riots?
Oh my God, I can honestly say that was one of the scariest times of my life. I think I was 8 years old.
Michael, have you had any encounters with police, good or bad?
I've grown up with encounters with police all my life. I've had police officers take me out of the car in Westwood because they said I fit a profile.
Black Lives Matter means what to you?
Black Lives Matter means the world. Black Lives Matter just means a movement to give us the same type of grace and the same type of rights that you will give any other person without prejudice.
What kind of camera are you using?
Right now I'm using a Canon. It's a Canon EOS R. It's almost like an accidental Renaissance type of picture. So rather than it just being, oh, just on iPhone, I was here, I want it to be like timeless. People could hang it up and remember 2020 just like that.
You can find Michael Young on Instagram at YesMikeDanger. He's a graduate of UC Riverside and is engaged to be married. Any of those blurred photos are things that he did.